These are audacious promises, aren't they? Audacious guarantees. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. We know a little bit about hunger and thirst, don't we? Do you ever wish you had a chance for a do-over? Guess I'm not alone in that one. As an introvert, I find myself wishing this all the time. I almost need that little bit of extra time and space alone to figure out what I should have said or done in any situation. And I have learned that often you can return to a person and say, you know that question you asked me? Well, I've been thinking about it, and I thought about something I should say. And lots of times this works, but sometimes it doesn't. This week was one of those times when I missed an opportunity that I couldn't go back to. I think it was Thursday afternoon. I was working in my office, which is back over in that corner, and I had the door open, but it was a very quiet day. Linda wasn't in the office, and I heard someone out in the fellowships hall say, well, you could go and ask Pastor Martha about that. I stepped out to find one of you standing there. I won't identify you. I didn't know your name, but you have come to church, and you were very friendly and simply said that you had come to see if we had any donuts because you were so hungry. What a reasonable request. And for those of us who gather here on Sundays, it would seem that there is always a feast set up in that fellowship area. But on a weekday, it looked really barren. No tables, no food, no nothing. I felt embarrassed. I had just eaten my own meager lunch, which would have been very enjoyable. You know, my little bag of veggies, Deb. It wasn't a donut. But I went to look in the kitchen, but then as I opened the refrigerator doors, I realized I didn't know which food belonged to us and which belonged to others who use the church. You were very kind and left quickly, not wanting to trouble me. But as I went back to my office, I felt terrible. I thought, what is wrong with me? I should always have donuts. Then it dawned on me that I had a bag of almonds in my desk and a few protein bars. I could have given you something to eat. And I also realized I had a stack of tickets in my drawer that I can give out for the 3 free hot meals a day offered to anyone on any day at the Union Gospel Mission. But I stumbled on my own inadequacy and let you get away without a crumb. And for that, I am truly sorry. Being hungry and being thirsty is something we know about. We cannot survive without the basics. And so often in the stories of Jesus, he is meeting people at the point of their deepest hunger and their deepest thirst. Today we hear about a crowd of people hounding Jesus, following him and wanting proof that he really is the one whom God sent. So what do? They ask him for a fantastic sign, something big and epic, something that could have made it into the movie The 10 Commandments, something that they say like Moses did when he provided manna daily in the wilderness. This request is pretty humorous, especially considering where this story is positioned in the Gospel of John. Our text today began in John chapter 6, verse 25. But do you know what story is told in John chapter 6, verse 1? It's the story of Jesus feeding as many as 5,000 families on a hillside from a mere 5 barley loaves and 2 dried fish. And after that epic miracle, baskets are filled with leftovers and gathered up. He has just performed an epic miracle. Following that, he walks on the water to where he is. And then they say, why don't you show us a miracle? You know, how often do we walk right past the miracle? Have they forgotten so soon, or is Jesus trying to teach them something even harder to grasp? something that is good news for all of us. Jesus tells them that when they fill themselves on bread, they will be hungry again. Just pay attention this week. I'm guessing some of us will overeat. When you sit down to a big feast like we did here on Friday night, or like some of us will do on Thanksgiving Day, what happens? If you eat more than normal, does this mean you won't be hungry again? Unfortunately, some of us get more hungry after a large meal. Jesus says, if you stuff yourself on bread, you will be hungry again. Just like he told the woman at the well that he met at the well on a sweltering day, if you drink from this well, you will be thirsty again. He is saying there's a difference between physical hunger and thirst and spiritual hunger and thirst. We are all born with this God-shaped hole in our soul. And try as we might, and those of us who live with addictions have tried, we cannot fill our spiritual hunger and thirst with physical bread and water. It is never enough. There's a great line that was written by an Irish poet that has been turned into a country western song. One drink is one too many, and 1,000's not enough. So often with our addictions, we are trying desperately to fill a spiritual hunger with a physical substance or human behavior. But that hunger and thirst of the soul will never be satisfied. One cannot drink enough or eat enough or smoke enough or spend enough or gamble enough or be in enough relationships. The hole in the soul can only be filled by God. And that is what Jesus says when he tells us this simple truth. I am the bread of life, he says, and when we feed each other spiritual food, a little bit of food goes a long way. Each Sunday, somewhere between 250 and 300 of us share in the bread of life, the body of Christ. One loaf feeds all of us, and there is still plenty left over. Have you ever considered what a miracle that is? And who leaves the communion table hungry? That bread represents God's amazing love for us, the new life we are constantly offered and fed in Jesus, and the community of love that supports and feeds us. Today we have extra bread. We hope that every one of you will take some with you and offer it to another hungry soul. Don't have to even say a word about where it came from. When we give thanks for what we have, there is always enough. Amen.